By the time, you take into account the extraction of the materials, the processing of the plastic, the distribution, the refrigeration, you could fill each bottle about a third full of oil, and that's how much energy you've used getting that bottle to you. It's ridiculous.
The amount of petroleum for the water bottles that the U.S. consumed last year would have fueled 100,000 cars.
100,000 cars.
For a year.
For 1 year. Do we need to use, this unrenewable resource just to move around water that we have access to already?
A much greater amount of energy is used than people realize in order to transport bottled water from its source to the consumer. In order for someone in Chicago, Illinois, to drink a bottle of Fiji water, the bottle is first manufactured in China, then shipped 5,000 miles to Fiji, where the bottle is filled. That bottle is then shipped 5,700 miles to Chicago, traveling a total distance of 10,700 miles, consuming 1/3 of 1 liter of gas per bottle, a total of 15 pounds of water used to manufacture and transport that 1 bottle, ultimately producing a 1/2 pound of greenhouse gases.
I mean, that's just in water bottles that we're throwing away, and then they're ending up in the garbage dump, or they're ending up in the ocean killing wildlife. And the plastic that ends up, not in a dump, in the ocean, on the ground, it never biodegrades. I mean, it just never biodegrades. It photodegrades. So it breaks up into these teeny tiny little particles, which ocean life is eating, birds are eating, so it's ending up in the food chain.
Now, Gulino just generally is founded by Captain Charles Moore in 1994, when on his way back from a Transpac race about 600 miles northeast of the Hawaiian Islands, he discovered mass quantities of floating plastic. What it is an accumulation of debris that gathers as a result of this debris starting from a particular shoreline moves with the different ocean currents, where trash gathers and then is carried on in certain parts or to specific accumulation points. These accumulation points are called gyres. Now, the problem that occurs with plastic is that it's not biodegradable. What plastic does is that it photodegrades, which means it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and so there are always pieces of it available. So when these particles photodegrade, they float in the water, and they become accumulation points for plankton, which is exactly what the marine life feeds on. So in essence, what is happening is that the plankton, which now attaches itself to the plastic, is then absorbed by fish and birds and other forms of marine life. And that's where the danger points occur.
Right now, if you were to poll the American public about their biggest concerns, it's going to be the economy, national security, homeland security. And when those are the 3 biggest issues, almost everything gets pushed aside, right? Education, healthcare, and the environment. And the environment, while it may get its 15 seconds in a day of attention, that soundbite's going to be about one thing, maybe. It's just tough to get the American public to focus on more than 1 or 2 or 3 things at a time.
Plastic is rarely disposed of properly, and even less likely to be recycled.
Last year, people in the United States were throwing away plastic water bottles at the rate of about 100,000 a day. So the most noticeable effect is landfills filling up with plastic water bottles.
Everybody says it's, the plastic is recyclable, but how many of those bottles are getting recycled? 8 out of 10 end up in a garbage dump.
Even though they recycle, it's really expensive to recycle plastic bottles, so most do not get recycled.
Plastic recycling has more problems than just people getting the bottles into the bins. Most water bottles are made with PET plastic, PET plastic, and it is recyclable. However, plastic contains chemicals phthalates in particular, that require virgin plastic to be included with the recycled material. So not all of it's getting recycled necessarily. When you're buying a recycled plastic bottle, it isn't just reused materials.
So it's always going to be using new petroleum and new resources to make the new bottles.
Many transparent bottles and jars are made from a type of plastic called polyethylene terephthalate, or PET. An automated mixer combines PET pellets with flakes of recycled PET. Reprocessed plastic loses some of its physical properties, so the recycled content can exceed 10%. The recycled material used in making these bottles and jars doesn't come from used plastic containers. For hygienic reasons, the factory recycles only new plastic left over from its manufacturing process.
And because the regulations on plastic recycling in this country are so strict, in many cases plastics get shipped to Asia to be recycled. So all of the energy that requires, shipping it overseas, does a lot to negate the savings of recycling it here.
What I argue is, look, it's great to recycle. It's better just to reduce consumption at the beginning. So rather than going out and being a good soul and purchasing bottled water and recycling it, don't purchase the bottle at all. You're going to save a lot more energy if you're not going to have to recycle. There's a problem. If you have a lot of things to recycle, you're purchasing too much. You're consuming too much. And in the end, it's not just one R. It's reduce, reuse, recycle, repurchase. And folks have to remember that when they start to think green.